folks. Okay, so as you can tell from the thumbnail, probably, it's going to be a little bit of a different war video today. So this particular war, war number 7, was a very dramatic one for me, right? I went through a lot of mood swings over the course of this war. And as the end of the war approached, I started thinking about this video that I was going to make, and there was something I wanted to say. I wanted to make some time, probably towards the end of the video, to talk about how much I love Alliance War and why I love Alliance War. And then something unexpected happened, and the tone of this video changed quite a bit. So I'm just having these fights play in the background. They're not that important. The main point of this video is for me to do a little bit of a rant. So first, the brief story of this war and why it had inspired me initially to talk about why I think war is so great. So this particular war was close right from the outset until near the end. I happened to be one of the last people to take my boss fights. At that point, we were slightly behind. It was still definitely winnable, but it was going to take us performing very strongly on our last fights and the opposing alliance kind of running into some struggles. But still very possible. There was a lot of pressure on me, or at least that I was feeling, not that my alliance was placing pressure on me. I was nervous, certainly, but I was also excited. I felt like I had built on some good momentum, some good skills over the course of this season, and I felt confident that maybe I can even solo all 3 mini-boss fights that I was going to take, but at the very least, maybe 1 death at most, and that should really give us a shot at winning. And what ended up happening was I performed absolutely terribly. My worst war in forever. I gave up 5 attack bonuses over the course of those 3 fights, and I thought I had single-handedly just destroyed any shot of us winning. And that made me feel absolutely sick. It's the worst I've felt in this game for a long time. And some of you may know from watching my channel that I recently went for a Serpent in the arena, and I came out short by a few million, so wasted like whatever 15 hours that I spent doing all that arena. And this feeling that I had for this war was much, much worse than the pain that I felt from losing out on Serpent. And the difference is it's not just me who's affected, right? I felt like I had let down the team. We really needed a win here, and I destroyed that chance, right? But as it turns out, our opponents started struggling a little bit at the end, or more than a little bit, to be honest, and we were doing the math, and at some point very close at the end, we realized we had actually won. And that sickness, that depression that I was feeling, it just turned to total elation, right? Obviously, there's a relief of realizing that, okay, I hadn't actually let my team down, and, some of the joy of just winning anything, right? But there was also, well, I felt proud that I struggled, but my teammates really picked up the slack, right? And it's always a team effort. We ended up coming up on the winning end, even though I had done so terribly. And so I was going to talk about how no other game mode in MCOC gives you that kind of feeling, right? The highs and lows combined with the team camaraderie aspect. It almost feels like being on a competitive sports team at times. So I was going to wax very poetically about all of this. But the war actually finishes, and the results come out, and it turns out that we lost. So what happened? Did we do the math wrong? No. Turns out Kabam did the math wrong. Many of you probably know by the time this war video posts, I think this problem will be well known, but just to be explicit about it, there was a scoring change with regards to diversity that was supposed to go live for war number 8, the war following this one. They had announced this change right before War 7, like maybe an hour or 2 before, and said explicitly in the release, we need to give you time to make these adjustments, so these changes only go effective for War 8. But that didn't happen. They screwed up. They made it they made it effective for this war, and that destroyed any chance of winning. What I did in these fights made absolutely no difference, win or lose, right? I could have soloed every fight. We wouldn't have won. Could have lost every attack bonus. We still would have lost by a lot, right? So obviously that's pretty upsetting to lose because of a mistake that somebody else made, right? It was totally out of our hands. There was nothing we can do. But that's not why I'm ranting. I know that, in the software industry, everybody, even the most diligent, highly skilled company, Highly skilled set of developers are going to make mistakes. I'm a software developer myself, right? I know well about how bugs happen, how you make mistakes during rollout, configuration changes, whatever. But there are good common practices that individuals and companies should put into play in order to reduce the chance that critical bugs end up affecting customers, right? And the most obvious one is, well, you test your software before you release it, and even after release it, right? When I'm saying testing, it's not just, okay, well, while I'm developing, I make sure it happens. I move my changes to alpha, beta environments. I make sure it's working there. It's also after I put it on production, after I release it live to customers, I'm going to verify that whatever change I intended to make actually has the effect that it was supposed to have, right? And I've been playing this game 8-9 years. There's a strong pattern that's developed that there are a lot of issues, way too many issues, where you look at what happened and you can only conclude that Kabam is simply not testing their software, at least not testing in any kind of rudimentary way, right? Otherwise, they would have known about these problems before they actually affect us, or at least, realized it immediately upon release. And that's just not happening, right? They clearly did not have someone checking that, okay, this scoring change only affects War 8 after they made that configuration change. What else, right? This last season of Battlegrounds in the Gladiator Circuit, there was supposed to be a steadfast buff that was placed on you as the attacker. That was a key part of the interaction for the meta, and it simply didn't work. The steadfast buff actually was being placed on the defender, which made absolutely no sense. And anybody who had done the most basic amount of testing, okay, here are the set of nodes. Are these nodes actually active when I go into the fight the way that they're supposed to be? Clearly, the answer should have been no. The band didn't even realize this. One of the content creators that I watch, I know based on what they said, right, is that Kabam only realized when he went into their whatever chat server they have, right, and said a week into the meta, hey, are you aware that this isn't actually working? And that's when it was clear that they realized for the first time, and that's when they fixed it. And then the season right before that, right, some of you will know this Adamant Axiom node that was supposed to be live didn't work from the outset. Couldn't possibly have been tested, just clearly did not work, and it was an important node to have there. So not even going to go into the fact that the way that they fixed it was to replace it with a completely different node that had different effects when people potentially had made rank up decisions based on the meta that had been announced, right? But putting all that aside, the bottom line is that they made a change, they released a certain meta, clearly was not tested when they released it, and only realized it after people started playing and complained. Coming back to War, many people have these similar kind of complaints about the current War meta that we have, right? That there are certain interactions that are so problematic that they couldn't possibly have been tested. But some of you remember that, it's just a few seasons ago that we had Prowess Power that was even worse, much, much, much worse than this tactic on release. You can probably still find some videos out there of people playing it and, getting to a fight with Kingpin, and in the first 5 seconds he goes to 3 bars of power. So there was less outcry about that because Kabam changed it before the season actually started. But still, whether it's off season or in season, bottom line is still you're releasing a change to customers that you clearly have not tested at all. There was Rage just last month. They made some changes and had the, side effect that roll boosts just simply didn't work for many, many attackers. So many attackers that, again, they couldn't possibly have done a verification. Okay, are raids after our changes actually still working the way that they're supposed to? So this list goes on and on and on, right? You need to give some examples to illustrate the point, but I don't want to bore you. So as I mentioned, I am a software developer. I haven't ever worked in the gaming industry. Standards in gaming industry may very probably, are looser than the industries that I've worked in before. But I really just need to say very bluntly, very straightforward, Kabam's just not meeting any kind of acceptable standard when it comes to testing. So that's part one. Part two of my rant is really about the community. Or at least some subset of the community. So when problems like this happen, obviously everybody floods into the forums, Reddit, Discord servers, YouTube, whatever, right? YouTube live streams, and they'll notify other people and let people know that, hey, this is something that was really upsetting. And there's some portion of the community that will very often come back and kind of defend Kabam. Say, look, they're trying. This was an emergency change. They tried to do something quickly in order to please us, right? They care a lot about their product. Their care, their effort is very obvious and sincere, right? The code base is really old, and that's what makes a lot of changes hard to actually affect correctly, right? This is all driving me up the wall, to be honest. You're making these kinds of excuses as if Kabam is a family member. This is the sort of thing like if your mom goes to the store and you ask her to pick up your favorite cereal and she ends up forgetting, right? Okay, well, yes, you have to take into account it's not because she didn't care. She cares. She's trying her best, has a lot of different things in her mind. It's not a big deal. Very easily excused. But when it comes to our relationship as customer to multi-million-dollar company like Kabam, there's really no reason for us to be making these kinds of excuses on their behalf. Ultimately, it really doesn't even matter if you know the people working there, or at least some of them, and they're nice, or you know that they really care. We are customers. We're paying for this product through some combination of time and or money, right? And when the product falls short of our expectations, we should demand improvements. And so I know a big reason why some people make these kind of defenses of Kabam is because, well, there's a lot of the community that will make these criticisms in very unkind ways, in very personal ways. And that's just not acceptable, right? There was a recent example where that kind of got passed around where someone on the forums who was complaining about I don't even know what the problem was, but they said, whoever did this at Kabam, I hope they get cancer, right? That's very obviously unacceptable. That person should be banned from any kind of interaction with this game, right? And nobody should ever let your frustrations rise to the point where you're actually making these kind of very personal attacks. Yes, Kabam does have people working for it at the end of the day that you have to take into account their feelings. But when you're making just straightforward fact-based criticisms like what I think I'm making here, for other people in the community to temper that criticism, they're maybe very well-meaning about it, right? But ultimately, you're tempering that criticism, and that just hurts us all. Why should anybody feel the need to apologize on Kabam's behalf? Kabam has shown repeatedly, to be honest, that it's only when criticism or outcry about some problem reaches some critical level that they're actually going to react, assuming that, we're talking about a problem that's non-trivial. So I felt for some time, and my frustration is boiling over at this point, that when it comes to testing their product, Kabam needs to improve. They need to hear that from all of us, and we can't afford to be getting in our own way and trying to silence or again minimize these concerns that are being raised by people. It's clear that we are basically the testers in large part for this product. We're being asked to consume an untested product, and I'm tired of feeling that brunt. I'm tired of paying that price. Kabam, I want you to change. All right, so that's it. Let me know what you think about what I've had to say. You agree, you disagree, just please let me know in the comments. Please do be kind about it. I'm still going to keep on playing War, right? I still like the game. I still like the game mode. Just felt like this was something that needed to be said. I'll be back to the regular War recaps after this one, hopefully. So, all right. See you for War number 8. Take care, everyone.